Well, what do you know? Sony announced a new camera and it's not the a7S III. Still surprised? Stay tuned. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on the latest content. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's That One Camera Guy back at again with another video for you. I'm here talking today about the Sony RX100 VII announcement. Can you believe that it's already at 7? I don't have the camera, I don't have a physical copy of it, and that's all we're doing. We're talking about it. I'll give you my thoughts about this actual camera, but if you need an actual review firsthand, there's plenty of other people who've gotten that access already. Unfortunately, not me. But anyway, talking about this camera, let's go over quickly some of the highlighted features. I'm gonna kind of bullet point it because you probably already looked it up. Real-time autofocus tracking, IAF tracking, also works in 4K, touch tracking, 4K HDR with the S-Log 3 HLG, easy to share vertical video, meaning you can turn that camera around. So here's a Mark V, you can flip it over sideways and it has like accelerometers that will tell you it's oriented vertically. Then you got interval shooting for time-lapse now, which the previous model didn't have. You have A9 shooting capabilities, very similar to the A9. You got 20 FPS blackout-free shooting. The previous model had 24, but this one is much better. There's a really cool 90 FPS burst feature where it takes 7 photos at a very particular moment. So it's really specific. So maybe at the pinnacle height of someone jumping, you want to fire off those 7 frames, and it's going to do it really quick, and you can pick the best one. You also get 4K active steady shots, so you're going to get improved stabilization or hand-holding stabilization with the RX100 VII, which it wasn't in for the 6. The 6 had only 1080p, but this one gets it for the 4K option. And then finally, you get the integrated microphone port, and that is what this is all about. Everything else I told you probably isn't as important as the mic port on this camera. In the previous generation, the Mark VI, I could have sworn there was a lot of talk about everyone loved the camera, everyone liked it, except it was missing a mic jack. And people were saying, well, where on earth are you gonna mount this mic port or your microphone because of the setup of the camera? I mean, look, it'd be set up like this, and then there's where would the port go? And I think the discussion with most creators was like, just give us the port and we'll figure out where to put it. And it made a lot of sense because usually third parties will generate a cage or something like that to find a way. And that's similar to the Sony a6400. We've been able to migrate the hot shoe placement. And then there's this little cage here that I got for my RX100 Mark V. And as you can see here, if I can get it, there's a spot here, a cold shoe that I attach, or hot shoe, whatever you want to call it. And then imagine your Rode Wireless Go, right? I have it here, you just plug it in, boom, and now you've got this really small compact setup. And there's one for the Mark VI that's gonna work for the Mark VII, a cage like this. And the cage isn't very heavy, protects the RX100 Mark. It protects your camera, by the way, because I've dropped this straight up on concrete. But yeah, you can set it up. It's very small, compact. It's perfect. It's awesome. And that's the route I think people are gonna go if they go ahead and jump on this particular camera. All right, what's missing? What are some of the cons? Really quick here. There's no ND filter. I think people wanted that to come back. It did not. Same battery, but it seems as if the folks who've been testing it out feel that it's a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to be game changing. You're definitely gonna want to have spare batteries and a battery charging pack for long periods of use. It's still using micro USB, and the reason why it's still using that is because of the adapters or the first party items, like the hand grip that does the start-stop recording. They just have so many things using the micro USB, and I think that's the reason why they're not moving over to Type-C. But hey, you never know, it's probably be an update for the Mark VIII. The screen is still relatively the same as it was last time. There wasn't any major improvements, so if you wanted it to be better, it's not, unfortunately. And then the lens, as we mentioned before, well, we haven't talked much about. The lens is similar to last year's. It's a 2.8 to f4.5, 24 to 200 millimeter, 35 millimeter equivalent. So you're losing a lot of light at that telephoto range. Now here's the thing, when I had the Mark VI for testing purposes, I was out using it. I use it specifically like in an indoor sports shooting for volleyball, and the photos are a bit crunchy, and it was to be expected. It's a good outdoor and daylight camera when it comes to photos and really pushing the camera, but when it comes to low light stuff, it just doesn't hold up. But That's more of a picky issue on my end because I expect a certain level of quality on the image versus someone that might just be picking this camera up. Think about it like, oh, I just want a small portable compact camera to get me some versatility, some good 4K video and some okay photos. That would be a really good option. They're not looking to carry a 70 to 200 or a really bulky camera. They just want something tiny and something that can get them a better photo that their phone can't get, which we can talk a little bit more about. Okay, so funny thing, the Mark VI right now, I think it's $1198 for this camera, $1,200. The Mark VI, the previous model, is also at the same price. So if you were, well, granted there's probably sales, but the point being is that at this point, the Mark VI is obsoleted. Like, it's literally the black sheep of this whole scenario. Why would you even consider picking it up? So in my head, I'm just like, the Mark V is still even more valuable than even the Mark VI at this point, because why would you want to consider the Mark VI when the Mark VII just has everything else plus that mic port? Now, other things. Why is it that they're not doing 24-70? Here's my thought process on that. They are trying to bring a camera that's dual, okay, a Swiss Army knife, to the point where it can compete with smartphones. I really think that this camera is sort of like you want more than your phone can produce. And so I think that's where this camera sort of exists. It's that it's a standalone item. So some people might want to use their phone, but sometimes it's a little distracting. You got text messages and other things, surfing the net, whatever. But then you come along with a RX100 body, it's like, it's only for photos and videos. That's its primary purpose, and you can focus in on it and not be distracted by your phone. So that's the way I see this device, as one cohesive item. And so most phone cameras now, if you've seen some of the leaked images or whatever, cameras or phones are getting multiple cameras, ultra wide, normal, and telephoto lenses. So if you imagine that Sony releases a RX100 with a 24-70mm lens, someone who maybe is into smartphones is kind of wanting to move upwards in terms of their photography and they want something more powerful, they might ask, well, my phone already does 24-70 range. Why would I even need a 24-70 again on an RX100? The phones do 4K 60p, they do slow motion. Why? Why would you want to go that route? So having that 24-200 option gives it a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more reasons to exist for people who want just that little bit more out of a camera. So that's the reason. That's my logic. Let me know what you think is the reason why they're not putting the actual 24-70 and bringing back down the aperture to 1.8 to 2.8, because that's one of the biggest things. With the RX100 Mark V, you've got the 1.8 to 2.8, which makes it a really good low light option at the wide end at 24. So I think this is a really solid camera as far as the package is concerned. It's phenomenal that you're getting great photo capabilities, great video capabilities in a tiny package. I think it is going to be a great option for content creators and vloggers, for some, those that are in the market to look for it. It's also great for the people that are in the Sony ecosystem that have been using Sony cameras and have wanted a small point and shoot camera that looks and acts like an A7 III, an A9, and they'll be right at home, especially with that menu system. The thing is, you're not wanting to get this camera for the pro level features. It's more on that consumer level, but you're getting, like, it's weird. You're getting consumer to pro level quality at a pro level. Like, that's the way I see it, how this camera works. So don't expect APS-C quality or full frame quality, but expect this thing to just work really well. And then finally with the heating, it seems as if it's still probably improved, but there seems to still be limitations on it. So it's very curious to see how that works out. I will probably get a unit later on to test out and see how well that does for me. And I think that's gonna do it for me as far as this particular Sony RX100 Mark VII. Let me know your thoughts down in the in the comments down below. What is it that is still missing on this camera? Because you know what, there's gonna be a Mark VIII in about a year and a half. And what are they gonna do? Because, you know, Sony is always doing the staggering thing where they bring in a little few features and then they do this to get to entice you. But that's the way I see this particular camera going. I think they might do the 4K 60p eventually. But in terms of what this camera is now, do you think it's a good buy? What's the price point that works best for you if you wanted to pick this one up? Or what do you think they missed out and not do for this camera? I know A7S III ain't around yet, and it looks like there's still a couple more announcements in a few, well, 5-6 weeks or something like that. Let me know, again, down below. That's gonna do it for me, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other content. And with that said, I'm your host, That One Camera Guy, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace. Man, it's really hot in this room.